It's just the little stuff. I mean, it's just the stuff that makes you just feel delighted. Um, my wife and I went for a walk on the beach with our dog last week, and we stumbled across that troll that artist Thomas Danbo had built in Lincoln Park.
Mm.
And I made me feel 5. It's just so imaginative and delightful. And it was put there for absolutely no other reason than to bring joy to people, right?
Yes.
That day in spring when all of the sudden there's just this preponderance of green on all the trees because the leaves are coming. That day makes me feel joy.
Wow.
But it's the same as the day in the fall when you look at the trees and you think the leaves are changing.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know,
That's
cup of coffee, perfect martini. um, um, just the stuff that makes you warm and delighted.
wow. Love it. The simple things.
Simple things, just little stuff.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely.
And a little sugar. I was born by the river. I'm slipping fast. Oh, back down memory lane. It's that love in need of love. The makings of you.
Hello, beautiful people. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to another Makings of You. This great session and this great recording of this great episode you're going to hear is with the one, the only Linda Najak. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
You are.
Woo, good. I feel good about that. And this is an absolute pleasure for me because for the past 3.5 years, I've had the pleasure to work with this woman, this great individual, this great spirit, and been a supporter of the platform and the show. And this is once again a pleasure. So I'm grateful. Linda, how are you doing?
I'm all right. I'm grateful too. Yeah. Thanks for the chance to sit down and talk.
It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, it has.
It has. But we're going to get to know more about you.
Okay.
This is the makings of Linda.
Okay.
There's no wrong answers
That's a good thing.
because it's all about you.
Okay.
No one else can tell us better about Linda than Linda. So we're going to go through a series of questions.
Okay.
If you feel uncomfortable, like you want to pass on a question, that's absolutely fine. This is your episode.
Okay.
So you're guiding us throughout. I'm just asking questions.
Okay.
So, Linda, are you ready for the first question?
I think so.
Okay. I like that. I like that. Think so. Okay. So, Linda, how would you describe yourself?
Oh gosh. Um I'm a nerd.
Mm.
Yeah. I'm a great big nerd. I love to learn. I love to read. I love maps.
Mm.
I love lists. I'm really, really organized, like way too organized. And I'm also really silly.
Okay, like that.
And I love to laugh, and I love to spend time with friends and people that I love. And I also really love alone time. It really feeds me. I'm a super big introvert. And so all that time that I'm out in the community or with people, I have to recharge. And I love music. I love to make music. And I love to listen to music, all kinds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd love to get into
That's
that.
a few things.
A
Yeah.
few things.
Yeah.
Okay. Great things, I would say. So, Linda, what cultures do you represent?
Oh my goodness. I'm queer. And I'm really, really proud to represent the queer community. And that's a really when I was coming up, that wasn't a word
Mm.
in our lexicon, right? And it never felt right to me to say that I was lesbian. I didn't identify with that word. It didn't resonate for me, and I didn't know why, but it was the word that was available, you know. So uh, when I had the opportunity to understand about new ways that I could describe myself and had the chance to try on queer, that resonates for me. I used to say that I was a Southerner, right? Both of my parents were born and raised in the South. I grew up in Oklahoma. Um, and I've got a whole lot of that Southern appropriate in me, like deep in me, where it doesn't matter what's going on. You're just supposed to be appropriate all the time, you know?
I can relate.
Oh, that force is real. And I've spent a lot of time figuring out how to overcome that and to be really more comfortable with discomfort, which is super important. So I'm not sure that I would say that I'm Southern anymore. I think I've shed a lot of that. I'm white and uh, carry in me all of the uh, baggage and the history and the what is the word that I want to say? Distastefulness of that. Um, and so I learn more and more. I am working to learn more and more about how being white impacts the way that I show up, the eyes that I look through, the way that I relate to the world around me and the people in it. And all of the conscious and unconscious bias that goes along with that, that I have to learn how to be conscious of and to overcome. And I am a passionate advocate for folks experiencing hunger. And there was a time that I would say that a culture I represent is of a food banker. And what I would say now is that I am a passionate food justice advocate.
Wow. That's beautiful.
So there's some things.
Yes,
Yeah.
and we love it. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
On to our next question. How would you define your childhood and upbringing?
Um, my mom and dad were like the parents in Leave It to Beaver. Like seriously. I never saw them fight once
That's amazing.
in my entire life. I never was present when they even had a disagreement. I'm sure they had them, but they didn't let us kids see it. Probably a lot of that is that Southern appropriate, right? Um, so I would say my upbringing had a lot of elements of just being idyllic. I was born in a really little town, about 2,000 people, lived out on a rural route, literally had a pasture full of cows in my backyard. And, you know, I played outside all the time with all the kids in the neighborhood. And my community was, I came to understand as I got older, really segregated. Really, really deeply Christian in the most Oklahoma kind of Christian that you can be. Really fervent about there being one way, that it's okay to be. And I wasn't those ways. So I always felt like an outsider, always felt like I didn't belong. In a town of 2,000, there's no place that you can go where somebody doesn't know you. And I deeply craved anonymity. So there were lots of things about my childhood that were super cool. And there were lots of things about the place that I grew up that just weren't for me.
Wow. Yeah. I usually ask this question a little bit later, but I think this is the appropriate time for it now. Is when did you realize you were different?
I think middle school. And I couldn't put a finger on it. I learned that there was such a thing as gay men when I was in high school.
Mm.
But I didn't, it didn't even register for me that there could be a thing that was women who were gay. I didn't know about that until I left my hometown and went to college. And it wasn't until I left Oklahoma and moved to Washington that I really had the opportunity to get to know people who were not straight. But for me, I just I preferred to hang out with the boys. I felt more comfortable there. I was a super big tomboy. I played every sport that you could possibly play, and there weren't very many that I could play in Oklahoma. We still had half court basketball.
Wow.
We're the only state that still had half court basketball. Yeah,
How are you feeling?
I'm okay.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you. And for everyone that's tuning in, you all are listening to the makings of Linda. So, Linda, can you share a bit about your education? What was your education like in life? How do you feel about it?
Yeah. My dad was a university organic chemistry professor.
Mm.
And so smart, just so stinking smart. And he had come by his education um, pretty hard. His dad died when he was a little boy, and it was him and his three brothers and their mom trying to make it in rural South Carolina, and they were poor. Um, and like every picture of him as a little boy, he didn't have any shoes.
Wow.
And so he relied on being able to be in the military to get education. But he ended up getting a bachelor's, a master's, and a PhD in chemistry. So there was no doubt that we would go to college. It was just where we would go to college. Like that was not a debate in our household. And I remember when I was little, I learned that some of my friends would get their report card and their parents would pay them for A's.
Mm.
And I remember asking my dad if he would pay me for my A's. And he said, "No, I expect you to make A's," you know. And I remember being a little kid and asking him questions like, "Dad, why is the sky blue?" And he'd say, "Well, let me show you." And he'd grab a napkin and he'd start like drawing all of the chemical equations that, and he would explain it to me in like college level chemistry speak.
Yeah.
But it was just, it was just like this illustration of like you can know stuff and it can be like super helpful and applicable stuff. And I wanted to know stuff. So I was the nerd that like it was really fun to me to like play school and like actually do school. Like
Yes.
my mom would take me to the bookstore and we would get workbooks and I would like make my neighbors do like actual workbook stuff.
Yes.
And my neighbor Barney and I, he's now, of course, medical doctor at Bethesda, we would sit around and for fun, we would read encyclopedias, right? So I told you I was a nerd.
I joke around with my father-in-law because he said that was what he used to do. He just go sit down and
I
read the
loved it.
encyclopedia. We're like, no,
Yeah,
you did.
I
But
loved it. I loved it. I had
did
a
you have the
we did
full
we had this
set?
we had the whole set like
Mm,
and my parents bought the set from a traveling salesman
wow.
when they lived in Texas. In Austin. Yeah. Yeah, that I love to learn. If I won the Powerball, I would just go back to school
Mm,
and I just take every class.
amazing. You already jumped on one of the questions that I had. We may still touch on that one
Okay.
later. But so you kind of mentioned earlier about having siblings.
Yeah,
Do you have any
I've
siblings?
got one brother and one sister.
Okay. Where
Yeah,
do you fall in with your
I'm the baby.
you the baby?
By a
Okay.
long shot. Yeah, they're 7 and 10 years older than me.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you feel like the baby?
I did for a long time, but I don't think I do anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. No, we love it. We love it. Now, going back to that Southern appropriateness, this is a difficult question for me,
Okay.
but I have to ask it. Do you mind sharing your age with us?
Oh, that's fine. I'm 57.
But you know how the Southern works, that is
I never understood that. I
once again, it's
mean,
culture.
we all
That's
have a
one thing to
birthday.
talk about. I know we all have a birthday, but like if my grandparents, oh my God, always feel like my grandmother, like, what are you doing every time I do it? But thank you so
Of
much for
course.
sharing.
Sure.
So, going into our next question, when do you feel like you had your first sense of responsibility?
Oh gosh. Um, my first sense of responsibility.
Yes.
I remember my mom arranging a babysitting um, situation for me and dropping me off at the house to babysit.
Wow.
And I had no idea what I was supposed to do. I mean, I was the youngest. I'd never taken care of a kid.
That's a big responsibility,
I
by
had
the way.
no idea what to do, and that felt really scary.
Mm.
Yeah. Um, I got my first job when I must have been 16. Um, and I did other stuff before that, paper routes and that kind of stuff. So I think I've just always I can't remember not working.
Mm.
Yeah.
Totally understand that. But thank you. That was actually the next question we have.
Mm,
So, I'm going to shift gears a little bit
okay.
for our audience, maybe new to. What brought you to Food Lifeline?
Mm, um, let's see. Um, I thought that I was going to be a university professor. I
Mm-hmm.
was going to follow my dad's footsteps.
Never too late.
And as I began pursuing that, it just became really evident to me that job, that role has changed really dramatically over the past few decades. And the kind of professor that he had the opportunity to be is kind of not very available anymore. I have several friends who have tried to make a go of that, and they're trying to piece together teaching at multiple colleges, and it's just not what it used to be.
Mm.
So when I was finishing up coursework at grad school, I didn't really know what I was going to do. I had spent a bunch of years running campus housing units. I was a residence hall director, um, and I'd had a lot of responsibility in that regard. I was responsible for 5 residence halls at Washington State University for undergraduate women, and I supervised a staff of 20 resident assistants and 2 assistant hall directors, and I had all this background kind of in housing. I had done graduate work in counseling, and so I thought, well, I need to find something that kind of makes use of those skills, and I just tossed a bunch of resumes out, and I ended up landing a job as the first paid executive director for a tiny little startup YWCA in Moscow, Idaho. And at that time, it was called the YWCA of the Palouse. Today, it's called the Sojourners Alliance. But they had a shelter for women and kids who were experiencing homelessness, and they had a food and clothing bank out in a little tiny community called Troy, Idaho. And I really thought that it was the shelter side that was going to be the thing that resonated for me, but it was the food bank.
Food Lifeline.
I just was absolutely taken both by the need and the work. And coincidentally, that job didn't pay great. I made $14,000 a year as a full-time executive director. So when I began my work,
14,000.
yeah, I also became food insecure. So it meant a lot to me personally, having that experience, to have the opportunity to do something about that experience. I left that role to get a job in hunger relief in Seattle, and joined an organization that at that time was called Operation First Harvest. Today it's Harvest Against Hunger. And my job was to build relationships with farmers and to source produce for them, and then to share it with organizations like Food Lifeline and Northwest Harvest.
Wow.
So I was a food donor to Food
Yes.
Lifeline, and got to know the organization that way. Got to know all of the hunger relief organizations in Washington and Idaho and Oregon and all over the Northwest. But Food Lifeline was special. And when the executive director left, the board chair called and asked if I might be interested in putting an application in. And so I did. And I got the job.
I've been just rocking and rolling ever since. What changes have you recognized from you first starting here at Food Lifeline to
on.
today?
I mean, what a ride. What a ride. Our understanding, I say our, and when I say our, what I mean is that I've had this opportunity to lead this organization, but Food Lifeline is part of a national organization, Feeding America. And so I joined an organization where I have 200 peers around the country. And one of the things I love about the Feeding America Network is that there are lots of convenings where we all meet together and have the opportunity to have a lot of conversations. And so the things that I was learning were also the things that my peers were learning. We really thought that if we just raised enough food and distributed enough food, we could end hunger. And then we had a lot of learning about our role versus the role of the federal nutrition programs. And we came to the realization that our work was just a small percentage of the anti-hunger work that happens in the United States. And that the real safety net is the federal nutrition programs. And what we do is catch the people who fall through those, right? There was a lot of research then that was happening, and we evolved our understanding to know that folks weren't just struggling to put food on the table. Right. They were also having to make all these trade-offs: food or rent, food or medicine, food or pay the utilities, food or put gas in the car. But this was during a time when there wasn't much data available, right? And so we started doing this every 4 year study, and that study was so rich with information about the various challenges that folks were facing. So we learned about hunger being a symptom and not the problem itself, right? And then we began really understanding about the role of racial inequity and social injustice as the leading driver of poverty, and poverty being the leading driver of hunger. And when I began learning more about the role of inequity, it just absolutely became clear that that was the work that we had to do.
Wow.
But what an evolution. you know?
Truly.
Yeah,
Since how long you been with the organization?
25 years.
25
Yeah.
years. That is amazing. Oof, it is a stand of testament. I haven't been working that long, but the hear your growth and to see where this organization is now, um, many of my peers and family members know that this is a great organization to be a part of,
Thank you.
and I don't say that lightly. Like I'm happy to come in and doing the great work and bringing great people in, and I've seen you do so many things around the organization, not only sitting down for interviews to speaking weekly to speaking to all of our staff members, but even the smallest thing. I don't know if you remember, I emailed you when it was a spill or something in the kitchen happened and you grabbed a mop and you just started mopping it up and being the leader, the chief.
Mm.
When I say like I don't say boss, I mean leader, because you can send an email like, "Hey, this happened," but you didn't expect somebody else to do it, and we had a quick back and forth. This is during the pandemic,
Mhm.
and oh, we can talk all through that as well. But
Oof.
it needed to be done, had to get it done, and that is impactful. And I wish everybody in this organization, I wish it was a little video for people to see that, because that is truly meaning, like, no matter what. Earlier I was walking through and I saw like a little, I think, cucumber from last night on the floor, and I like, just pick it up. Don't need to step it over.
Right.
This is our organization.
That's
We need
right.
to treat it as that,
Yeah.
and that meant a lot. So thank you for that.
Oh, my pleasure.
Oh,
Yeah.
gotta say it, 'cause I mean, like, people don't hear it all the time, so have to say it. So where do you want Food Lifeline to go? You
Mm.
got some bigger shoes to step into. You have, and you've done a great job. Where do you think Food Lifeline? Where do you want it to be in the next 5 to 10 years?
Oh my goodness. Oh, so much opportunity for growth. Um, I think it's important to say that as leaders, uh, we have to be really cognizant of the fact that we're taking space, right? And I think it's okay for a leader to take space while while you are able to adeptly and confidently and you earn the right to lead the organization.
Mm,
And I think there comes a time for all leaders when they shift from taking space and they need to make space.
mm,
And so for me, um, um, the decision to leave the organization in large part is because I've had this opportunity for 25 years, and having it means that somebody else doesn't.
mm,
And um, um, I believe that the next person who steps in to lead this organization is going to take it places that I could never have imagined,
mm,
nor have been personally capable of taking it. Um, and so it's time for me to make space to let someone else step into this role and do that. I believe that um, the equity work that Food Lifeline has begun has just started.
mm,
And there is so much more that we need to do to deeply embed that work in every corner and every crevice of this organization, both internally in our culture, in the way that we interact with each other, and also externally in the way that we show up in the community. Um, and I think Food Lifeline is really going to have the opportunity to grapple with what it means to help catalyze a movement to end hunger, right? I believe that hunger exists because our community hasn't stood up and used its collective power to demand that hunger end.
mm,
And I believe that if enough people in our community understood that that is all it takes,
mm,
is making that demand and not backing down and doing it together as a community, right? I think that that could be unstoppable. And as an organization, we touch the majority of the population in the area that we serve. There is absolutely no reason that this organization couldn't help catalyze that social and political will. So I'm super excited to see somebody else help make that happen here.
That's beautiful. Amazing. And that's what I'm talking about. I love it. I love it. What would you want to tell a new employee here for Lifeline directly to them, no matter the position?
Yeah, you really matter. We created the role that you're stepping into because it's critical. It's critical for the team. It's critical for the department. It's critical for the organization. It's critical for the mission. It doesn't matter if somebody else see the role as big or little, important or not. We took the time to create it because we needed it. And so it's critical. And there is no role that is above another. We all have the mutual responsibility to show up every day and do our level best in whatever our job is. And to be courageous and bold, and to be kind.
What song represents you the best?
Oh, gosh.
Like, if you had a sitcom, Linda, what would come on?
Wow, that's real hard. I might have to think about that.
Okay, it's okay.
Okay, I'm gonna let's answer some other things maybe, and we'll come back.
We'll come back
I
to
have to
it.
think about that. There's so many.
I know.
Okay.
So how about this?
Okay.
If you could have lunch with 3 people, dinner, and have just a conversation wherever you want to go, give me 3 people you want to meet with. Use your imagination.
Oh gosh, James Baldwin.
Okay.
Allen Ginsberg. Fred Rogers.
Fred Rogers. Mr.
Rogers.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, is that the Rogers I know? Like, okay. Okay, those are good selection right there. It's a very good selection. Okay. How would you define joy?
Oh, it's just the little stuff. I mean, it's just the stuff that makes you just feel delighted. My wife and I went for a walk on the beach with our dog last week, and we stumbled across that troll that artist Thomas Dambo had built in Lincoln Park. And I it made me feel 5. You know, it's just so imaginative and delightful. And it was put there for absolutely no other reason than to bring joy to people, right? That day in spring when all of the sudden there's just this preponderance of green on all the trees because the leaves are coming. That day makes me feel joy.
Wow.
But it's the same as the day in the fall when you look at the trees and you think the leaves are changing.
Yes.
You know?
That's
cup of coffee, perfect martini. Just the stuff that makes you warm and delighted.
wow. Love it. The simple things.
Simple things, just little stuff.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. So, going to our next question. Doing great, by the way. This is a would you rather.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So, would you rather go back in time and speak to your younger self, or would you rather your future self come and speak to you now?
I would go back in time.
Wow.
Yeah, for sure.
What age would you go to?
I think I would go to I think I'd be like 29.
29.
Yeah.
Would 29 Linda listen to Linda of now?
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. I was hungry for perspective.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I've never heard anybody answer that question as quickly as you. And I love it. I love it. I
Mhm.
love it. So you have a biopic coming up.
Okay.
Who would you have play you?
Oh,
Who would you have directed?
okay.
What network would it come on?
Okay.
And what would be the rating? Like, would it be PG, PG
All
13,
right.
R?
Yeah. I think Sandra Bullock, because she is equal parts serious and complete goofball.
Mm, mm,
Director Jodie Foster.
okay.
That'd be
Okay.
cool. That would be really
That's what
cool.
I'm talking about.
Network.
Or theater, it could be never theater, all
Okay.
that.
Well, I don't think that Jodie Foster would direct anything that would be on TV, so
Okay.
it would probably have to be in a movie theater.
Big screen. We
I,
love
I
it.
guess. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And what would be the rating? Would it be for family friendly?
No, I like to cuss, so it would definitely be an R.
Okay, I rock with it. I rock with right here. We're right here. No, this is amazing. Let's go back to that theme song. You still gonna need
Oh
some time?
gosh. Oh, I'm really struggling. Uh, um, maybe it would be The Clash. Should I stay or should I go? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. One thing you can have more than one theme song. Some
Okay.
seasons drop, with different
Yeah.
songs
Oh,
coming
for
in.
sure. Yeah. I'll keep thinking.
Okay.
Okay,
No
there could
problem.
be
No
others.
problem. But we could go with the Clash right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I really like. Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned you play sports.
Yes.
What was your favorite sport?
Rugby.
Get out of here. Okay. I wish I even knew. I don't even know the positions of rugby. I know I just used to play as a kid. I know you got to tackle. But you really were rough back
Yeah.
then.
Oh, I loved it. It was so much fun. It
Wow.
was so much fun.
Wow. Usually my favorite question. If you can have any meal at the snap of
Mm,
your fingers, and I got to add this in, and it's not going to cause any
mm,
calories, anything,
mm-hmm,
but you can have it any time.
mm-hmm,
What would be the meal
mm-hmm.
and who would prepare?
It would be my mom,
Mhm.
and it would be scrambled eggs with grits and toast.
That's
Hmm.
good. Wow.
Every Saturday morning, seriously, every Saturday morning growing up. That's what we had. And then as a family, we would clean the house. Like back to that, leave it to Beaver, right?
Yeah, I was about to say that was like perfection right there.
Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, scrambled egg and grits.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. And what areas in your life do you need to heal?
Oh, ooh. uh, oh, that's deep. Um, uh, family.
Mm,
Um, um, I think I can be pretty hard on myself. So probably focusing some of that healing on the way that I treat myself.
mm.
Yeah.
And speaking of self, from great, then you went to the next question is how do you take care of yourself?
Mm,
How do you relax?
mm-hmm. Um, I cook.
Mm,
I exercise. Um, I used to make a lot of music,
mm,
and I've gotten away from that. I used to play piano
mm.
all the time, and I've gotten away from that. And I've got to fix that.
Yes,
Yeah.
you do.
Hmm.
I would support that.
Yeah.
Well, I did not know we had a pianist here.
Hmm.
Okay, and especially in Linda. We love it. We love it. Who represents your community of support?
Mm, my wife.
Mm,
She is my number one fan and my biggest supporter. And she is amazing at building me up and giving me perspective. My mom, my friends, and this place, right? Food Lifeline. Because it's also a place where I feel like I get some really good real talk that I really appreciate.
We appreciate you. Seriously. So we coming into the final stretch of the questions. How you doing?
Okay.
Doing great, I'll tell you that. Seriously. This is the makings of Linda, everyone. So Linda, how would you want people to remember you?
I hope that they would say that they felt listened to and heard. I hope that they felt that Food Lifeline is a place where they could be their whole authentic selves.
Absolutely. Love it. Love it. What changes do you want to see in your cultures?
Well, as a white person, it is so horrific, this inability to understand the importance of exploring our history and the way white culture has absolutely perpetuated terror and hostility and imposed just horrific religious, racial, ethnic oppression. And the inability and unwillingness to look at that is astounding to me. I do not understand unwillingness. I grew up Christian, but the church lost me when I came out. And religion was used as a weapon, right? And that can't be. That is such violence. I should have said I needed healing from that. So that is a thing of a culture that I would challenge. And I think in parts of the queer community, there is a lot of bias around really ridiculously superficial things. Body size and shape, clothing and hair and makeup, and just all of that superficial garbage. And it's really toxic.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
And what changes are you making in your cultures?
It's so important to me to as a white woman to continue learning about racial equity and social justice. I have learned so much, and I am aware that there is so much that I have still to learn. And I am absolutely committed to take that into any workspace that I inhabit. And into my personal relationships as well. It's really, really important. And I think on the flip side, I feel really, really committed to adding to joy, right? Like in all of the spaces that I can show up. I'd really like to add to joy. Like there is nothing like a really great dad joke, you know?
Give me a list of them.
Oh, my dog is magic, right? Yeah, he's a labracadabra.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorites.
A labracadabra.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah.
I roll with it. You got me. I was like, it's a name.
I know.
I really thought it was
I
magic.
know.
But
part of the dad joke is the deadpan. Yeah.
and you got to pull them into it.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Good one. Very good one. Melinda, you've done it. You did it. You've completed the makings of you with everything culture.
All right.
We got a couple more questions. That is, how can we support you? How can our audience, how can our support system and everything culture support?
You already do. I mean, when I watch and listen, I get the opportunity to hear so many new perspectives and thoughts, to be educated on so many different topics. I have learned so much, and that is the best kind of support. Yeah, thank you.
And who would you want to see on the makings of them?
Oh, gosh.
You have any recommendations?
Let's see. I do. We have one of the most extraordinary board members, Anita Whitfield.
Anita Whitfield. Okay. Anita, will you hear this, or if you watch this, we're coming to find you. Okay, we look forward to interviewing you very soon. And Linda, if our audience is looking for you and you're trying to be found, where can they find you?
I mean, it's kind of an unusual last name. You don't have to look very hard. But they'll soon find me in Chicago and find me at Feeding America.
All right. We'll be there supporting you from Seattle to Chicago to Houston. You have our support.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda.
Of course. Thank you.
Can we get a hug?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my goodness.